folks, Dad here with Elevation Diecast Racing. Welcome to the qualifying round for Matchbox versus Hot Wheels 31 to 40 weight class. Today we'll get times on everybody who entered this event and see where the seating is going to place into the bracket. We have 44 entries, 22 teams, 2 cars each, a Hot Wheels, a Matchbox, and we're going to roll them one by one and get our fastest times to see where they're going to be placed into the bracket. First up is Dutch Clutch Racing with his 32-gram Mercury Cougar for Team Matchbox, run number 1. To 104, and for run number 2 to 114. Setting TQ at 2104. And with his Hot Wheels entry, 34-gram C6 Corvette for Team Hot Wheels, 2097. And for his second pass, 2086. Resetting TQ. Next up, making his way all the way from Finland, it is Northern Roads Racing in his Hot Wheels Ford Torino, 2083. Resetting TQ. Pass number 2, 2076. Time's getting faster, resetting TQ. And with Northern Roads Matchbox entry, it is the Quasar Laser Wheel, 39.8 grams, run number 1, 2059. Ooh, good time. Resetting TQ again. Run number 2, 2055. Great time. Now the time to beat. Next up, the 34-gram Sweet 16 representing miniature car racing. It's Bolo Brown, run 1 for his Hot Wheels, 2123. And for run number 2, 2115. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the 70 Cuda in yellow, 37 grams even, run number 1, 2111. And for run number 2, 2105. Next up, representing 131 Racing, this is Kyle in his Matchbox Sierra, 2156. And for run number 2, 2130. And for his second entry for Team Hot Wheels, the 40.7 gram Jackhammer, run 1, 2081. And for run number 2, 2075. Next up, all the way from Germany, it is representing Bavarian Diecast Racing. It is the Bavarian Bomber in his gruesome twosome, 38.6 Matchbox, roll number 1, 2074. And for roll number 2, 2062. Good time. And for his Hot Wheels entry, it is the Ford Torino, 2069. And for run number 2, 2059. Good time. Next up in the 40-gram 69 Dodge Charger representing Abnormal Speed Racing, this is Abby Normal, run 1, 2089. And for run number 2, 2081. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the 70 El Camino, run 1, 2120. And for run number 2, 2114. Next up, it is DXP Diecast Racing. DXP driving his Hot Wheels Mach 1 from 1971, 2069. And for run number 2, 2068. And for DXP's Matchbox entry, it is the Ford Sierra. 2070. And for run number 2, 2067. Next up in the 70 Matchbox GTO, driving for the Chase Family Racing. Run number 1, 2082. Run number 2, 2083. And for his Hot Wheels entry, it is the Buick Wildcat. 2085. And for run number 2, 2082. Next up, driving for 131 Racing, this is Clay in his High Roller. 2093. And for run number 2, 2083. Also, we do have a track temperature of 72 degrees. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the Ford Sierra. 2069. And for run number 2, 2069. Next up, representing all the way from Canada, Variant Skunkworks V1, driving the Hot Wheels F-150. 2103. And for run number 2, 2092. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the 1997 Chevrolet Corvette. 2108. 2108. 2106. All right, next up, representing Zizzer Prime Racing, it is Zizzer driving the 40.3 gram Shazam. Roll number 1, 2094. And for run number 2, 2086. And for Zizzer's Matchbox entry, it is the Ford Probe. 2111. And run number 2, 2097. Next up in the 40.6 gram Jaguar ID I-Pace. Milestone Diecast Racing. Driver is Milestone. Run number 1, 2079. And for run number 2, 2074. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the Ford Sierra. Run 1, 2063. And for run number 2, 2058. Good time. Next up from the Zamac Speed Shop, in his 65 Mustang for Team Matchbox. Mustang GT, roll 1, 2097. And for roll number 2, 2095. And for his Hot Wheels entry, it is the BMW 850i. 2090. And for run number 2, 2080. Next up, the 39.3 Buick Regal. For Team Hot Wheels, it's RC Addicts. Run number 1, 2015. And for run number 2, 2088. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the Laser Wheel Ford Sierra. Run number 1, 2066. And for run number 2, 2061. Real good time. Next up with his Matchbox Ford Sierra, driving for Flips Racing, it is Flip. Run number 1, 2050. Resetting TQ. And for run number 2, 2048. Once again, resetting TQ. And for his Hot Wheel entry, it is the Man of Steel. Run 1. 2064. And for run number 2. 2062. Good times out of the Man of Steel. Next up, for Boggs Racing, it is the Boggs Racing 39.3 GTO Boggs Family Racing run number 1. Welcome to Elevation Diecast. 2099. And for run number 2, 2097. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the BMW 3 Series wagon. 2157. And for run number 2, 2150. Next up, 2 from Captain K's Racing. It is Captain K in his Matchbox Grand Prix. Run number 1, 2081. And for run number 2, 2075. And for his second entry, it is the Cadillac V16. Team Hot Wheels 2078. And for run number 2, 2070. Next up, from Poverty Hollow Diecast Racing, it is Scoop and his Johnny Benson Hot Wheels Stalker. Run 1, 2065. And for run number 2, 2060. Good time. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the 99 Mustang GT. Run 1, 2075. And for run number 2, 2072. Next up, from Madman Racing, it is Mad Mike in his Hot Wheels High Roller 2. Run number 1, 2076. And for run number 2, 2073. And for Mad Mike's Matchbox casting, it is the 23 Dodge Charger Pursuit. Roll number 1, 2082. And for run number 2, 2078. Next up, 2 from the Scale Racing channel. In his Ford Torino, it is Scale Racing. For Team Hot Wheels, 2068. And for run number 2, 2067. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the Laser Quasar. Run 1, 2049. Wow. And for run number 2, 2044. Resetting TQ 2044. Next up, from Raquel Diecast Racing, it is Sparky Racer in his Javelin FTE from Hot Wheels. Run 1 gives him a 2095. And for run number 2, 2083. And for his Matchbox entry, it is the Nissan 300ZX 2090. And for run number 2, 2080. And for the last team that made it to Mile High, it is Hot Nuts Racing all the way from St. Petersburg, Florida. For his Team Hot Wheels, it's the Ford Gran Torino. Run number 1, 2081. And for run number 2, 2069. Good time. And for his Matchbox entry, it is a Laser Ford Sierra. Run 1, 2055. Nice time. And for run number 2, nice and quiet, 2051. All right. Give me some time. What'll take you less than 2 seconds. It's going to take me some time to put these numbers together, and we'll be back with how the bracket looks. All right, so here's how it all shakes out. The top 20 have made it on to the bracket. And the preliminary round will be a fight to get on the board. Here's a look at the other side. So it's going to be quite the race to see who's going to first make it onto the bracket and then to fight it out. We'll go over it again. So definitely looking forward to this. Hoping to run a Saturday race as scheduled. I'm even going to try and squeeze in Friday Night Lightning in between. So until then, from all of us over here at Elevation Diecast Racing, if your car is not fast, well, at least it'll look good on the shelf. See ya.